I love it, Nate. Spotify employees. There was a couple of stories about them being anti. They want to censor the Joe Rogan stuff. Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding to. That they want to silence him, or they're we live in a sensitive time, I guess. I'm sensitive. We're all sensitive. Whatever. To kind of censor him or whatever. I don't know, man. It seems very weird. It seems a little strange. I don't know if you guys have any takes on this, but it seems a little deep statey that it's not necessarily coming from the employees and it's more of an agenda. But I don't know. I guess time will tell. He hasn't mentioned it because I listen to pretty much every new episode of Joe Rogan, and he doesn't address these things, and good on him because similar to the trying to cancel what's his name, one of his good friends, the comedian. They just don't talk about it. They're like, why give it attention? So I think that's smart. But yeah, I think it's somewhat baseless, but it's hard to really know unless you're essentially at Spotify to see it firsthand.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, and he wouldn't address it. I mean, he wouldn't. It's probably in his contract. He just can't. I mean, when you sign a contract like that, you do sell your soul. I mean, they own you, and that's why he hasn't addressed, I'm sure, any of the censoring, or I don't know, has he addressed any of the censoring?
No, the only thing that's happened is he said something on a podcast fairly recently that he had to backtrack on Instagram with an apology, like a correction, which has never been his style. So that's where people are like conspiracy theory about this. But you're right, he doesn't typically do that.
Right. So I think that apology, if he was in his old YouTube world, would never have happened. It would have just you move on. You move on. I think from a Spotify employee perspective, like at the end of the day, you have an employer and you have to understand their end game. You know what I mean? And in this case, it's to make money, and you're actually going against your company. So, I mean, I'm sure they're not unionized, obviously. So, they're playing with fire. I think.
Well, they're based out of Sweden, aren't they?
I'm not sure. Are they?
They're not an American company. Because I'm pretty sure they're Swish, or no, Sweden. I can't remember. It's one of those two, and they. I'm not sure how. Part of me wants to call bullshit on the whole thing because, and I'm not going to take credit for this because I heard it from, I think, KFC on Barstool said, is this just a way to make noise for more people to head to the app, to the platform to check out Joe Rogan?
Oh, totally.
So, I mean, we're talking about him right now because of this. Yeah.
And if one of the biggest media companies in the country, Spotify, versus one of the biggest media companies in the country, Barstool, also talking about Spotify, I mean, we're doing it. It does get clicks, it does get likes, it does get things that people are interested in. And we're not doing that because of that. We're just genuinely fascinated by the situation. But I could see that it's a little bit of viral marketing, right? It's a little bit of let's drum up a controversy and see what people do with this.
That's a good point. Bad press is good press, right? More clicks. Who knows, man? Could be very much so the case. But the thing is, like, there's so many people already listening. I don't think it's going to gain that much more traction.
It doesn't make sense to me either because you're right. He's huge. He's already huge. He doesn't need. They don't need that.
Yeah, and if Spotify is trying to make a return on investment that much quicker and spin this for that reason, I mean, that's fucking nonsense. But I don't know. I mean, that's why I go with the deep state thing, just because he always rips on Bill Clinton, and obviously, like, you don't want to go down that road. You don't want to get assassinated.
No. Well, the thing about that I don't understand, if that is what they're trying to do, is they're alienating his fans. There are some of his fans that are going to say, okay, you're cutting off episodes and you're not putting those up, or you're making him issue apologies that maybe look a little like he has to do it because of who he works for now. And you float a story about employees going on strike. I mean, is that all those people that like him for who he is with the free speech and we'll talk to anybody and we'll put it out there and we don't care and we want to learn things, which I'm on board with. This is just going to alienate those people, right?
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So let's put ourselves in Rogan's shoes. You have
good point.
10 years of free speech, whatever. You have your own platform. You have this massive payday. Do you care if 3 episodes go away?
It's a great question.
Like from his perspective, he's assessing all the noise, and He's still performing numbers. He's still getting the bag. He's getting the paycheck. Does he care?
Mhm.
I don't know. I would say no. He's got his hands in so many things that it's just like on to the next one.
I'd love to hear his take on this. His full unadulterated, not behind the scenes bullshit stuff. I want to know what he thinks. We'll never hear it, but I would love to hear that because you're right. He could just be laughing all the way to the bank, right? Like I moved to Texas. I'm making $100 million a year or over 3 years, who knows?
Mhm.
And I'm keeping most of that. And cool. You cut out the Alex Jones episode. I don't give a shit. That happened 4 years ago or whatever. Like good for him. So I could totally see that being how he feels. I could also see him saying, I don't understand why they're fucking with me. Like, I thought I told them up front I didn't want to be fucked with, and now it's happening. Like, because that's what happens when you sign on with someone. So, they then hold all the cards if you want to get paid.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what he thinks.
I think it's the latter. I want to think this way, that he initially, when he first announced on YouTube, I believe, where he said, I'm moving to Spotify, nothing's changing. He said it so like verbatim that was like, okay, that's awesome, nothing's changing. So when things did change, or the episodes got removed, which is an act of censorship basically, I feel like that was against his will and essentially a breach of contract, but there might have been some fine print.
Unless it wasn't in the contract to begin with, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you just admit it all together. Yeah, that could be the case.
So if I'm him, I'm making sure that gets in the contract if I don't want it to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where I call a little bullshit on that. Like, maybe he didn't give a shit and he's, like...
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Here's a thought is, so take a band. When they sign to a major, the major doesn't, unless it's in the contract, the major does not own the rights to all the back catalog. So I wonder if this is a case of that where really Spotify is only in bed with the new stuff. Where...
That may be it.
Where they just say, you know what, where Rogan was like, all right, yeah, put all my old stuff on so people can still listen to it. But then they're cherry picking it. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I could see that happening. So riddle me this. Why didn't he just go subscription?
Yeah, good question.
Right? Like, why didn't he just say, hey, I want you to pay $3.99 a month to listen to, what does he do, 4 episodes a week?
Something around that, yeah.
3 or 4?
He could get 10 a month. He could get $10 a month.
He could. I'm just saying, even if he said $4 a month, just to keep some of those people that couldn't afford the 10 a month in the platform. I mean, 10 a month is, you can get all kinds of different stuff for 10 a month, Spotify, whatever. Maybe he's going to take all of that money, that $3.99, $4.99, $5.99 a month.
Point, yeah.
He gets to keep all of that as opposed to cutting in somebody else, especially where they know how to distribute and put on YouTube, because they're not paying to put it on YouTube. YouTube's happy to have him because they can sell ads. So why didn't he just go that route? Wouldn't that have made more sense? And then you wouldn't be censored. You get to continue to be you.
I think that kind of goes back to a few episodes ago where we were talking about you got to stay in your lane, because if you don't know how to run a whole service system, I mean, that takes such a huge infrastructure. He maybe thought about it and was like, man, that's a lot of legwork. Spotify is essentially becoming like the platform. You take it or leave it. At the end of the day, like, if you're going to run your own independent thing, you have to think about it being another bill that people have to be like, do I really want this? Not really.
Yeah,
so,
true.
That's a good point.
If anything, people are downsizing at this point, not necessarily adding. So
yeah, and it's only going to change. That's only going to continue to happen over the next 2 or 3 years as things either change or get better, hopefully at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say even downgrading, like I was saying a second ago. I'm backpedaling on that, but I think it's more of just acquisition, right? Spotify's just going to keep buying stuff. So
at some point that money's going to run out. They're not making money.
Yeah, true.
Even if they're valuated at $54 billion or whatever, they're not technically turning a profit. So you'd think that would go away. And this, so here's the thing. He's their crown jewel. Why have all this controversy surrounded it unless it's a play to get people to listen? But even then, I don't understand it, because this is not the play. Like, there's other ways to go about that.
That's a good point. Yeah, you spend, it's like spending all this money on a Cadillac, and then you start cutting. You don't get power windows. You know what I mean? It's like, why bother?
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? But Nate, just to get back to the stay in your lane thing, there's services out there like OnlyFans, and I know OnlyFans is a lot of different industry for the most part, but you don't have to be in like the adult industry to get in that. There's platforms like that take a relatively small cut, a small rake. You could dip right into that whole infrastructure I mean, even take Bandcamp. I mean, that's probably too small for him, but you could weave into one of these existing infrastructures and still get $8 out of those $10 or $3.50 out of that $4, and have them do the legwork, right?
So go ahead.
Really good call. No, I was gonna say that's a great call. And actually, when you were saying that, I was like, I didn't even think about that. But as you were saying it, I was thinking about all the other things he has his hand in, which is essentially just, it seems like, just listening to it, like limitless plugs on these different companies. And they're probably putting the pressure on, like, well, if you do that, the audience isn't as big. We're not going to sell as many Traeger grills or whatever. The exposure we get on YouTube, where we can literally run the Traeger grill advertisement, or Spotify, where it's literally reaching so many people. I think it's maybe influenced by that, if that's the case. But I think that's also a good call, because if you really wanted truly artistic control, that would have been probably the better play. This is all hindsight 2020, right? At the end of the day, who knows? It's really hard to say, but it's a really good point, actually. It's one.
So think about this. How many people do you think listen to Joe Rogan a month?
Fuck, I don't know.
5 million?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
2 million? I mean, let's conservatively say 2 million people listen to him a month.
Yeah.
If those 2 million people like it enough, and I wouldn't even count myself in that because I listen to it occasionally, but if they're cool with paying $10 a month, that's $20 million a month.
Yeah.
Right? And that's before you've sold an ad. So he could totally have gone just subscription and made this not a thing if he didn't want to get censored, and he's getting censored. It looks like censorship. It's weird.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, man.
That's a. I mean, being in the podcast game, obviously on the minuscule scale compared to Joe Rogan, it's a crazy thought to me that maybe down the road someone's like, yeah, we don't want episode 3. You're episode 3. You said something that didn't even make any sense, and we're gonna cut that. Like, I wouldn't want that. I would want it all out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny though, in typical podcast fashion, where it's like all the information's one-sided and asymmetric or whatever, there's no monthly listener log on Spotify for podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, they want to hold that info and hold it from you, so they own the cards, so they have the leverage.
Yep.
It's a game. I'm starting to talk like Joe Budden right now. Like,
it is a game, though. You're right.
It is a game. Well, I was going to say, back to Rogan on holding the cards close. He's mentioned that Netflix does that same thing, where they don't give the metrics to the artist.
Right.
So like for him to do a stand-up comedy special on Netflix, like it's like they basically say, "Yeah, good job, man. You did great. Cool. How many people watched?" And they're just like, "A lot." But they
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But did they censor him?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's next.
Right. Like that's. I mean, I we wouldn't know because we don't know what he said in the moment unless you were at that show. And that's a vastly smaller group of people than the people who've listened to his Alex Jones podcast.
Right.
But we wouldn't know otherwise. But I think if someone was in this day and age, if someone was at his show 3 years ago that was a Netflix special, someone would have been like, hey, they cut out this, and this, and here it is because we viewed it. Or, you know what I mean? Like it would have hit the Twitter world or the social media world that he was censored by Netflix. And that never happened. So it stinks a little bit, right?
The thing is, we won't get the full story. You just won't. Never.
Yeah, we're just speculating.
We'll just talk. We'll talk about it next week.
Spitballing, yeah. we clearly like the subject. I mean, it's something that makes we're all nerds about this stuff, like because we're kind of in the game a little bit, and we pay attention to that stuff. We listen to the pod. We see other pods get promoted and how things are, and it's cool to like delve into that stuff. So. You're going to hear a little bit about that here. I know it's not necessarily music, but we like that shit.
Yeah. It's related. We're on Spotify, right? And at the end of the day, like...
This is a podcast. Yeah.
It's a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. And freedom of speech, I mean, I thought it existed. It seems like it's dissipating.